but we know what you're here for. You're here for How to Train Your Dragon. Now, this is not a tutorial. This is a movie review. So, everyone... Hello and welcome to the Nerdiest podcast, the podcast where nerds talk about nerdy things. I'm one of your hosts, Mr. Jackson Glass, today joined, as always, by my ride or die, Mr. Nick Barrett, the host with the most, who's always sleep deprived. And I'm going to ask him how he's doing here in just a minute. But today, we are revisiting a movie series that I cannot believe Nick had never watched before this because it's one of my favorites, a DreamWorks classic, and that is How to Train Your Dragon. Now, these three How to Train Your Dragon movies we're going to be diving deep into today, and also giving a little twist on our thoughts on the live-action remake and what that means. But also, today we get to talk about TikTok being banned, and also, the Switch 2 is real, everybody. Finally, the Switch 2 is real. We're going to break down our thoughts and tell you everything. So make sure you stay to the end to hear all this amazing conversation. But if you want to be in on the conversation, you should follow us on Instagram at The Nerdiest Podcast or on Twitter at Nerdiest Podcast. Or if you want to watch beautiful video versions of this podcast, you can go to youtube.com and search for The Nerdiest Podcast on there. We cannot wait to interact with you and connect with you. Thank you so much. Mr. Nick Barrett, how are you today?
Well, you know, I'm alive, and I'm here, and that's the most I can say. This week has been a little hectic. I've had something every night, including tonight. And it's crazy because, so Monday I had Monday, Tuesday, church stuff, as usual. Wednesday, I was guesting on the Nintendo Byte podcast to talk Switch 2, because the going rumor since Monday had been that, it's going to get revealed Thursday. So, and I was already scheduled to be on this podcast regardless. So, as soon as those rumors broke out Monday, though, Nintendo Prime, who runs that podcast, messaged me and was like, hey, if it's revealed on Thursday, we're doing a whole bonus podcast talking about it. Do you want to be on? And I was like, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. So that filled up Wednesday, Thursday. And then Friday I was streaming, and Saturday I was streaming. So I've had something every night this week. Granted, of my own volition.
Right.
So next week is not as much. I was supposed to be streaming 3 days next week, and I took one day out because I was like, no.
No, that's not what we do here.
We can't be doing this.
We take care of ourselves.
So I've just been doing that, working on content. I'm a little ahead. I have a video I need to watch. It got uploaded this morning for me to look at, and it had the red no monetization, and I was like, that's
nice,
not great. And then it had the red cross of blocked worldwide, and I was like,
nice,
that's awesome.
That's
this
why
is
we
the problem
upload.
with doing anime videos, is the anime companies are a lot more specific about their footage, so I might have to figure out how to use that footage in a different way or something to skirt around the copyright laws. But we'll see. So I'm working on that. I'm working on some other videos. There's one video coming out in February, I think, that I'm very excited about, but I can't talk about it yet.
Ooh.
So I'm very excited about that, and I will tell you guys more when I can, but I can't right now. So That's all I've got. Pretty chill week. I am finding the time. I will have you guys know. 2 updates from last episode. 1, I finished Epic the Musical. Very good.
Very nice.
2, I have found time this past 2 weeks to actually put time into Mario and Luigi and Persona 3.
Good word.
So I'm slowly but surely, I found time, I think on Sunday or Saturday, I put a good 4 hours into both. And I was like, all right, we're getting somewhere. Just got to keep this up and keep going, and they'll be done in no time. So that's my update from that, and that's all I got. Jackson.
There you go.
How have you been?
Wow.
I know you're back to school.
Yeah,
How's that going?
very similarly to you. I have nothing to say because I've been going nonstop.
That's fair.
I mean, school is great. I love a lot of my classes right now. That's all going well. I'm making a lot of different videos for a lot of different things, and that's really exciting. We're still wedding planning, getting ready for the summer. Kind of crazy. It's counting down. We are less than We're less than 4 months away now, which is bonkers. But that's pretty much honestly, I've just been doing homework till like 1, like every night. And so I'm like absolutely zonked. Update though, I told you last episode about my basketball endeavors.
Please tell me you did not pop that basketball already.
No, I did not. Don't worry.
Okay.
My $55 basketball. Actually, good news. I've been using it a lot, and I've been out just like shooting buckets. Like the last like 3 days, I've just gone out and like shot hoops like every day. So that's great. I'm getting my money's worth. Also, little update is one of my New Year's resolutions was to watch more TV. And that sounds like a stupid resolution, but the thing is, I don't let myself watch TV because I feel like I need to be working. I always need to be editing, planning, writing, doing some schoolwork, whatever. And so I never just take the moment to take a deep breath and be like, it's okay to watch 45 minutes of TV and then keep working. Like, just take a break. So, new shows we started. Me and Amy are watching Twin Peaks, which is so screwed up. What a weird show. But I'm so intrigued and I love it. We just finished the first season. Also, rest in peace, David Lynch. That kind of ruined my week. He was really such a visionary director just of our time, and he died this week. So rest in peace, David Lynch. That's a big deal. But I also started a new show yesterday. Me and my roommate started Severance, which is on Apple TV Plus. And the second season is running right now. So we were like, oh, let's start it. And it has Adam Scott is the main character. And we watched the first episode and we were like, yeah, we have to watch all of this. Directed by Ben Stiller, fascinatingly enough.
Really?
I think Ben Stiller is a better filmmaker than he is an actor. I really like his directing style and all the movies he directs. I feel like I enjoy more than his acting. So anyway, update to follow. I started 2 TV shows, and they're shows that I normally wouldn't start for me. So I'm branching out, update to follow, and that's pretty much it. I've just been doing schoolwork or work and watching TV. So there you go. That's where we're at.
Fair.
That's where we're at. We need to blaze through that because we have so much to talk about because it's news time.
Wiggy wiggy wow. News time.
All right, first things first. Let's get this out of the way because it's big in the stratosphere right now for tech and content. Is that TikTok? No, okay, sorry. Preface.
Bye-bye.
This may not be fully relevant to everyone. I don't know what this entails. I'm going to go into U.S. politics for a minute. Everyone's favorite topic. So, yeah!
America!
All right, if you're considering fast forward, don't worry, it's not going to be bad. So they're talking about banning TikTok in the U.S., and this is about the 3rd time that they've threatened to do this, and this is like a 2-year narrative of like, we're going to ban it. We're going to let this other president figure it out. And then 4 years later, we're like, yeah, we're going to let this other president figure it out. And I'm like, why are we so scared to ban it? Like, what do we think's going to happen?
If it's really that big of a national security concern,
then
I feel
do
like
it.
it should have been done a long time ago, not
and so
now.
And there's a lot of conversation going around about like, well, so many people rely on TikTok for income and for revenue and all this stuff. And I want to be sensitive to those people because that is a big deal to lose your income like that. And I think about like, me and Nick are more like YouTube creators. And so like, that'd be like if YouTube got banned, that'd be a big deal for Nick. And for me, like the way that, we generate revenue from that. Well, some of us do, but it's interesting. So I don't want to be insensitive to that because it doesn't affect me. But also, I just have to think about like, we're gaining like, think about the amount of crap that the government feeds us, the amount of money they just randomly give away, the amount of data that's just been breached, the amount of stuff they just like don't care about. But TikTok has been this conversation for over 2 years.
Yeah.
Do you understand how big of a national security risk something has to be for our government to talk about it for this long? if it wasn't anything, we wouldn't be talking about it. And so revenue sucks. Like, I hate that for creators because, like, I'm a small creator. I understand that is really horrible. But also, protecting small creators cannot come before a national security risk.
Yeah.
Those two things are not equal in my mind. And it's kind of like, think about where your money is coming from. Like, these Chinese companies are stimulating the American economy, and we're just kind of like, this is fine. It's whatever. There's also, by the way, TikTok has increasingly contributed to our mental health crisis, has increasingly contributed to our short attention span. And you can say the same thing about Instagram and Twitter and whatever. Social media, this is a broader social media problem. But if you open TikTok not signed in versus like YouTube, TikTok is different. It really is different. And you can find so much horrific content on TikTok so much easier, and it's become a melting pot for that. And there is good on there, and I understand the small business conversation, but national security risk. We need to be concerned about the national security risk instead of downloading this other obviously Chinese app that is so bootleg and so destroying. Anyway, I'm just frustrated because we're so no, but I want to doom scroll all day. And it's like, okay, thank God we have YouTube Shorts and Instagram Reels and videos on Twitter and Facebook Reels. You can doom scroll all you want while Americans steal your data, okay? This is...
Yeah. Here's the thing. Yeah. I haven't gotten into all the legal mumbo jumbo of the Supreme Court. And I know Trump asked them to delay it and be hold on, there is a lot of small businesses and stuff that we're going to lose. So can we wait? The Supreme Court was like, no, it's getting banned actually to be gone by the time this episode comes out.
Right. In theory.
So what I think is really interesting is it has been a conversation for such a long time. And I feel like it was a political talking piece for both sides of oh, well, if you don't do this thing, we're going to ban TikTok. And that gets Gen Z on the opposite side,
right?
Because they're well, we don't want to lose TikTok. You're taking away our freedom,
right? And
it's all right, guys, all of you who are crying we're losing our freedom of speech on TikTok are the same ones who think Twitter needs more moderation. Okay, in theory, yes, Twitter does need more moderation. But they're also the ones who are well, you're saying mean things to me on Twitter, so you need to get banned. And it's no,
free
Twitter
speech goes both ways, brother.
Yeah, free speech is the thing that everyone has. It goes both ways. Now, you can curb people in and be hey, that was a little insensitive. Maybe you shouldn't have said that. You can have those nuanced conversations.
For sure.
But I think the bigger thing is it's not even getting rid of TikTok. The government doesn't have an issue with TikTok as a platform.
No.
And the Gen Z argument is well, the U.S. government, they know we're too free-minded on TikTok. And they're trying to silence us and take away all of our information. And I'm if that's true, then why aren't they attacking Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all of these other big social media platforms in the United States that are run by United States companies?
Right.
That's the problem. The government doesn't care about stealing information because it's actually quite useful for them. They just want to be able to steal your information and not it go to a foreign country who we are in kind of tense relationships with.
Right.
So here's my thing, though. If you're going to ban TikTok, I need them to have some level of consistency, and I need them to go down the App Store and ban all of the other apps that are doing the exact same thing that they claim TikTok is doing. If TikTok really is China stealing our data, all right, that's Temu gone, that's Rednote gone, that's all these other apps. Somebody put together a spreadsheet or a picture on Twitter that was, if you use this American app, here's the Chinese equivalent. And they're all available on our App Store.
For sure.
So, okay, go down and ban all of those. And I also think it's kind of disingenuous to say we're banning TikTok unless it can be sold to a American entity. And there's a lot of people, Mr. Beast has talked about buying it, which I think would be the craziest solution.
I think that would be the largest downfall of the platform.
Everyone
would leave.
I think he would buy it
Mm-hmm.
and then he would just kind of let TikTok, like the people who run it now, run it the way they were running it.
Right.
But it's owned by an American entity, so it kind of skirts around.
That'd be the same thing as like Elon buying X, though. So like,
yeah,
you know,
like, well, no, because Elon gutted all of like
right.
Twitter HQ, and then
Right.
it's been a whole thing.
Which, you know, anyway, that's another
You know.
conversation. But anyway, that's just kind of like, this is also my biggest question. I know we have like a broad like country of listeners, and it's kind of like, can I just hop on a VPN and scroll TikTok on my computer?
No.
Like, so that's different.
Because they said, one, it will not work on your phone even if you still have it downloaded.
Mhm.
So this isn't like a Flappy Bird situation. And if you use a VPN to get around it and put yourself in a different country, you will get penalized for it.
Whoa.
Now, this sounds oddly familiar to when Brazil banned Twitter for like a
Right.
month, and
I
then
remember
everyone
that.
got really upset and they walked it back.
Yeah.
So I predict a similar thing will happen. Like they'll go through with it, and then by like February or March, it'll be back
Right.
because Gen
In
Z's
some
gonna riot.
form.
Or
In some
their short
form.
attention span will quickly move them to another app, and they won't care.
Which this is a huge opportunity for another like smaller app to like rise from the
Bring back
ashes.
Vine. Bring
back
back
Vine.
Bring back Vine.
So, because you know what our short attention spans need? Maximum
7
of
seconds.
6 seconds. All right. Anyway, this is what you've been waiting for. Ladies and gentlemen,
talk of the
the
town.
frickin' Switch 2 is real, baby.
All right. Nintendo Switch 2. Let me hit you. So here's how
Hit
we're
me
going
with
to do
some
this.
facts.
I'm going to hit you with some facts, and then we can just talk for a little bit
Yeah.
about it. All right?
Yeah.
So, Switch 2 got revealed in a 2-minute and 22-second trailer that also happens to be 2 months, 2 weeks, and 2 days from the official Nintendo Switch
Dang.
2 Direct.
Okay.
I don't know if that had to be intentional. There's no way you get that many coincidences lined up.
Mm-hmm.
But there was that. It was revealed on Thursday, January 16th. It was a pretty short trailer that really was just like, hey, here's the Switch. Here's the new Joy-Cons. Here's the new screen. Here's the whole yada 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 yada. We get to see the Joy-Con running across the table, presumably in some kind of mouse mode, which I'll talk about in a minute. The Joy-Cons are seemingly magnetic now instead of doing the snap-on like they
Which is
were
so
before.
much better.
What else? It's a bigger screen. I think it was 8 inches was the number I heard, which I've seen pictures of like mock-up models compared to the OLED, and it's massive.
Okay.
Like it's huge. And then it will be backwards compatible with all of your Switch 1 games, with a little asterisk because there's some games like Ring Fit Adventure, Labo, 1-2 Switch, like games that are very reliant on the old set of Joy-Cons will not be compatible out the box with Switch 2. I'm sure your old Joy-Cons will be compatible like the Wiimotes were with the Wii U, and you could still use them. They just weren't like the default. So I'm sure it'll be fine, but for a broad statement of like what they were saying in the trailer, it makes sense. So like
Right.
you'll be able to pop Breath of the Wild in there and Mario Kart 8, and which might not need Mario Kart 8, but that's a different story. And then there's a full Switch 2 Direct on April 2nd, which I'm assuming will not only give us a better look at the console and like here's how the games are going to work, here's how here's a better look at the mouse mode and like that kind of stuff, but also games and that kind of stuff. So, and then they also showed off what appears to be Mario Kart 9
Man.
with 24 players.
24 players.
Dude,
That's so dope.
that's going to be crazy. If I
That's
get
so
knocked all the way
dope.
back to 24th, I'm uninstalling the game. Like, that's it. If I get blue shelled in first and go back to
No,
24th, I'm like,
right.
that's it. I'm done.
Can you imagine these 200cc online matches with 24, like double the people that you have
Dude,
now?
that's going to be so crazy.
Oh my gosh. Getting like first will be such an accomplishment for that, you know?
Yeah.
Because you're like, yeah, I got 8th, which is the new like 6th. So.
Yeah.
There
All
you
right.
go.
Give me some thoughts before I go crazy here.
All right, I'll let you go crazy in a second. So, I saw the trailer, and at first I was kind of like, Oh, I don't know. Because I didn't expect it to actually be called Switch 2.
Yep.
And I was like, it's kind of like, when everyone was like, Breath of the Wild 2, Breath of the Wild 2, and then it was like Tears of the Kingdom, and we were like, that's so much better! So I feel like this was, that kind of like caught me off guard, and they did like the like Switch icon with the 2, and I was like, is this really like what we, but also like, essentially by the time the trailer was over, I'd gotten over it. I was like, yeah, this is great. I think the magnetic system is so much better. The amount of times I've like wrestled with the little like locking system, sometimes it gets jammed, and then like the little like Joy-Con like slip-ons to make the buttons easier. Sometimes you wrestle with that. I think it's super sleek, the black look. I'm curious if they do like a white one for the Switch 2. I'm also curious to see if they go for an OLED eventually, because it is the LCD screen. I'm also kind of like, all right, if it's that massive, are they gonna do like an OLED that's like, because at that point you have an iPad, like you really, what's too big for portability? So I'm curious about that. Mario Kart 9 looks insane. I think that I'm curious about the mouse mode. I don't fully understand what that means, but I'm sure you'll explain that. It looks really dope. I'm concerned about the price. I have a sneaking suspicion that it's gonna be like weirdly expensive. But also, here's kind of what I thought about the trailers. I was like, this is awesome. It looks so good. Mario Kart 9 looks great. I'm hoping that our backwards compatible games can get like upscaled in a way that's not gross. So I'm hoping that like Breath of the Wild can like look better without just being like, yeah, we had a freaking like little AI enhancer that like makes it sharper. I hope that that's the case, but I'm also kind of like, all right, show me the specs and then I can really tell you like what I think, because like if the Switch 2 was like booty cheeks ugly, but it could run like Final Fantasy and like run Minecraft at a 10 render distance.
Minecraft
if it can run
Fortnite,
Minecraft,
dude?
if it can run Fortnite and Minecraft without imploding, like these standard games that like everyone plays, highest selling console of all time. Calling it right now. It'll beat the PS2. Like bonkers.
So let me ask you this. Well, one. Okay, so you said there's a couple things you said that I wanted to respond to, and I already forgot what they were. You talked about the white. Okay, so from what I've heard, we're back into like rumors and leaks and stuff. There is 3 SKUs, which is 3 versions in the launch year. The one that we've seen that's like the black with the like subtle colors, a white one that is white Joy-Cons, white console, not just like the OLED where it was a white Joy-Cons on a black console, and then a special themed one for a game that features 9 in the title, which everyone is assuming is a Mario Kart version. So I think they'll end up doing a white one. What I more want them to do, and I like this version of the Switch too. This will probably be the one that I end up getting, is the like black and the neon colors underneath, which I think is really slick. I think it works great.
It's really slick.
The only thing I don't like, and this kind of goes into what I want them to do, is more colored Joy-Cons, because like I really like my Skyward Sword ones that are all like one solid color. I don't want all of them to be like black with green and pink underneath. Like, no, make full colored ones, because that's what gave the Switch its personality and its flair, because then everyone could have different colored Joy-Cons. Like my sister and I have different colored Joy-Cons.
Right.
So,
and that's how you tell them apart.
what does bother me is the inside where the Joy-Cons go is colored to those Joy-Cons. So if you get the black Switch with the red and the red and the blue, and then you get like these Joy-Cons that are, blue and purple, if I put them in and I take them out, you're going to see that like, oh, these are not the default Joy-Cons.
Right.
So it's like, and it's one of those things that won't really matter, because when it's in the dock, like nobody cares.
Right.
And then when it's together, like it's fine.
Right.
I think they could get away with doing an OLED and not having to make it bigger. Because if you think about the Switch OLED, it's not physically bigger
Right.
than the Switch. It's a little wider because of what they had to do internally to make the screen bigger. But I think that'll be fine. I don't think it's going to be like another jump. And honestly, if you do get much bigger, it is going to feel like an iPad.
Right.
And then it kind of starts to lose that portability. So I think even if they did like a Switch 3, God forbid, like 10 years from now. Okay, hold on. Can we go back?
Yeah.
The Switch 1 was revealed in January 2017. That was 8 years ago. We've had 2 presidents since the Switch came out. That's crazy to me.
It feels
wild.
so new, but it feels so new.
Yeah.
Like, it hasn't lost its touch.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. And this just goes back to my theory that the Switch 2 is pretty close to a perfect console. Like, because what could you, like, assuming the Switch 2 has all the, like, spec capabilities that we're looking for, what else do you add to a console to make it better?
So, here's what I'll tell you in terms of specs, and then I want to talk about the mouse thing real quick.
Yeah.
Is specs that have leaked, which again are not official, but coming from the same people who leaked all the Joy-Cons and stuff, and now that's legit, is I think docked, it's on par with an Xbox Series S.
Whoa.
And then handheld, it's on par with a PS4. So that's the kind of power they're messing with. And it comes from, they have... All right, don't anybody get mad when I say this buzzword. It has AI upscaling. But not in like it's not generative AI, okay, guys?
Right.
It's literal artificial intelligence that takes what the hardware is feeding it and tells, okay, now I'm going to use a software to bump that up without pulling any more from the hardware. So it's like a whole thing. Nintendo has their own patent on their own technology to do that.
That's
so
awesome.
It's specifically built for Switch 2.
That's baller.
Which is how you're going to get like something like the Switch that can be super small and portable but look like a PS4 game. And before anybody starts being like, oh, PS4 games were ugly, shut up. Half the PS5 games are still on PS4. Like, get off my case. Anyway, do you have your Switch with you right now?
I do, yeah.
Do you have access to your Joy-Cons? I'm going to show you how this mouse thing works. So you can get a better idea of it, because I didn't fully understand it until I had it in my hand.
So, like, if I take the Joy-Con...
Yep, that's the right one, right?
Right, yeah.
Okay, because you're right-handed.
Yes.
Okay, so you're going to take it, and you're going to put it so that this part is down.
Hold on.
Yeah. Okay, so you're going to put that down, and then you just kind of hold it like it's a mouse.
Oh my gosh.
Do you see how comfortable that is?
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And like you can use the joystick, or you could slide ahead and you can hit the buttons, and then you hold the other one in your hand. So think about playing a shooter. Think about playing Fortnite.
Oh my gosh.
Like this.
Hold on. I get it now.
And you've got your movement stick.
That's my basketball. Hold on.
You've got your movement stick in your left hand, and you've got your aiming and shooting in the other hand, and you can do both.
So am I supposed to do like 2 fingers like that?
No. You hold the other Joy-Con like this in your hand.
Oh, like that.
Like normal.
So,
like you hold it like
but
normal.
face down.
No. Look, like this.
Oh, like that.
Just like this. And you use it like a Wiimote.
Oh.
And then the other one is on the table, and you can move it around and like shoot it. And I was like experimenting with this the other night of like pretending like I'm playing Fortnite, and I'm like doing the mouse whip around for the camera. And then you have all your shooting like on this side, reload. Yeah. Like it's actually kind of sick.
What a good idea.
And it's super like it's one of those gimmicks that doesn't take away from what the Switch is, but it adds to it.
Right.
It's kind of like the perfect gimmick.
That's awesome.
Where it's like the Switch can still be this super uber portable console that you dock and take out, and it still has that like funky Nintendo gimmick of, well, we're going to put a mouse in the Joy-Con because why not?
That's awesome. I understand now.
And now you can use it for like Fortnite, Splatoon. On that podcast, we talked about using it for like Mario Kart and how you can do like you could like motion with your hand to do drifts and stuff. And that's how you do your drifts, is like you have to actually hold it and then let it go. Like there's so much potential. Mario Maker 3, do a point and click mouse. Like there's so much potential with it, and I'm just excited to see how it gets used. Like Animal Crossing, the next Animal Crossing, if they have terraforming again, like all of these little things that I think would be really cool. So
that's dope.
All in all, Switch 2, very cool.
Very cool. Can't wait.
I've shown my Switch OLED, the Switch 2. You can see it on my second monitor there, just so it knows that it's getting replaced. So
hold on one second. Giving my Switch body dysmorphia. Hold on.
Are you gonna try to get a Switch 2 this year, or are you gonna wait?
I'm probably gonna wait
because your OLED's not that old.
It's really not. I got my OLED.
You got it like right before Tears of the Kingdom, didn't you?
I got it right before I went to college.
Okay, so 3 years old.
So like 3 years. There is still so much life in my OLED.
Yeah.
But
arguably,
I'm also like,
there is in mine too, but I think I'm gonna sell it to my sister because she has like an OG Switch.
Right. And
and she doesn't necessarily need a Switch 2.
Right.
So
here's the thing. I am a Mario Kart fiend. And so the second Mario Kart 9 comes out, I'm going to get so much FOMO. I am just going to be like, but I couldn't justify the purchase.
I'll come over because you'll have an apartment by then.
Yeah.
Okay, so the speculation is released sometime June, July. Because they have all these in-person events that go until June 1st. So they're not going to, release it before that. So, yeah, I'll come over because you'll have an apartment by then. I'll set it up. We can rock some Mario Kart 9.
It's gonna be great.
It'll be great.
Yeah, maybe when I graduate, that'll be like my hey, you actually have free time now present to myself. I'll just get a Switch 2.
Yeah, no.
Because also if you have one, I want to play with you. And I know other people that'll get one, and I'm just like, dang it, I really can't afford that. Gosh.
That's why I'm kind of glad it's coming out in the summer because I'm like, okay, it gives me plenty of time to save up. I got 6 months, 5 months-ish. If I save
start a little savings goal,
we'll be good.
Start a little savings goal. Make a little chart on your wall, and you can fill it in with marker every week.
Yeah,
it'll be great. All right. So, everyone, if you made it this far in the episode, thank you so much for listening. I'm going to plug you one more time and just say, if you're on Instagram, The Nerdiest Podcast. If you're on YouTube, The Nerdiest Podcast. If you're on Twitter, Nerdiest Podcast. But also, we have our own personal little side gigs, too. If you want to follow me at the Glass Studios, or I'm making a movie commentary on YouTube. Videos come out when they're done. That's my schedule. Nick is also doing a ton of really awesome anime content on YouTube. And weirdly enough, I kid you not, I used this as a flex in a class this week. Because I'm in a social media class, and I was like, yeah, I'm one of my best friends is one of the leading voices of Christian anime Twitter. So if you guys need any clout, let me know. So I was like, yeah, no big deal or whatever.
No big deal. All just the second biggest Christian anime YouTube channel.
Going up though,
fun.
Moving on up, going that ladder. So all those links are in the description if you want to follow us individually. If you like Nick but hate me, then go watch his stuff and then Dish podcast. So anyway, that's where also, if you can notice, we're wearing matching shirts. This is the Space Chords merch. This is my own merch for my music, Jackson Glass on Spotify, or you can go to the Glass.
Not coordinated, by the way.
You can go to Glass Studios shop. All the links are in the description. Go find us there. We really appreciate you guys. Show's been doing really great so far, but we know what you're here for. You're here for How to Train Your Dragon. Now, this is not a tutorial. This is a movie review. So, everyone, How to Train Your Dragon. We'll just go into a little history from me. We'll start on history and our experience with the movies. I do not personally remember seeing the first one in theaters. It came out in about 2010, I think. I think that's right. Yes, How to Train Your Dragon, directed by Chris Sanders, released in 2010. I don't remember seeing this in theaters. I was about 7 years old in 2010. So I don't remember that. I may have. But recently I've grown quite an affinity for the first one. And I did watch the other two movies in theaters, which is kind of a flex. Like anytime I bring that up, someone's like, "Oh, you're so lucky," and I'm like, "Yeah, it's whatever. I guess it's cool. It's whatever. It's fine." So I did see those in theaters. I saw The Hidden World in theaters like way after it released though, because there was like a summer movie program where like, kids could go to the movies for free. And I went like 2 years ago, and that was the first time I'd seen it, and it was in the theater, and it was awesome. So I love How to Train Your Dragon. And my fiance loves How to Train Your Dragon. We watched like all 3 of them like a few months ago. They're super dope. I think they're some of DreamWorks' best. But Nick, you'd never seen them before this, so tell me about that.
So I'd like to amend that. I've seen the second one.
Okay.
With no context of the first one. And even then, I only remember like scant bits and pieces of the first one.
Right.
Or the second one. And my sister was really big into it, so I've seen bits and pieces of like the shows on Netflix and stuff, and she's really big into it. But I'd never like seen it, and I'd heard they were really good. Everyone had been like, "Oh, they're so good! Like you should watch them." And I'm like, "Yeah, no, you're right. I'll watch them eventually." And then I was at I think it was at a flea market, and I found the Blu-ray of 1 and 2 for like $2 each. And I was like, "Oh, okay."
Bet.
So I bought them, did the whole like DVD check and everything. So I was able to watch the first 2 for this episode for free. Because I just popped my Blu-rays in, and then, which reminded me of this really odd thing that DVDs used to do that really made me mad, was it would loop the menu screen like 5 times and then just start the movie.
Right.
And I'm like, wait. No. Hold on. Stop it. So other than that though, I did not see The Hidden World in theaters because you know what movie was out at that time I went and saw instead?
What?
The Lego Movie 2. I went and saw that sucker like 5 times.
I've only seen the Lego Movie 2 once. I don't even remember if I like it.
Oh, dude, that movie's so good.
I think I remember thinking it was underrated, but I need to watch it again.
It's underrated. Underrated gem.
All right.
So yeah, I didn't have a ton of history with it. I just know that like everyone had said I should watch it, and it was good. And I guess to get into general thoughts, I enjoyed all 3 of them. I don't think there's a single, because sometimes with trilogies, you can be like, oh, well, that was the worst one, like yada yada yada. And even then, I think the second one for me personally was the weakest.
Okay.
But that more comes from I didn't like the villain as much as the other 2.
Right.
Because like the first movie doesn't really have a villain per se. It's more the dragons as a group entity.
Right.
And even then, a more antagonistic force is the conflict between Hiccup and his dad.
Of course.
Because that's the enemy that has to be resolved over the movie. And then there's like that really big dragon at the end that they have to fight because, But the second one, I don't know. I didn't really like him. But even then, I still liked the aspect of like Hiccup's whole family getting reunited and finding his mom and like the great relationship that his mom and dad had and like all of that stuff. Spoilers for these movies, by the way.
Spoilers for How to Train Your Dragon. Yeah, sorry, I didn't say that.
This should be
it should be like a no duh.
But like just the way they handled all of that, I like the villain in the third one.
He's pretty dope.
I don't know if it's just because like aesthetic or like vibes.
Right.
But I liked that he was very like crafty and cunning, whereas the other guy in the second movie was kind of just like brute strength.
Yeah, he was just a big old Viking. Like
so, I like that the other guy kind of, and I think the strengths of each movie is that it forces Hiccup to grow up in some aspect. Because the first one was like, okay, well, you have to grow out of this wanting to be like everyone else. And you have to be your own person and like stand on your own 2 feet. Well,
right.
You know.
Yeah.
And then the second one was pushing him into this chief role because his dad died. And like, what does it mean to be a good leader who protects his own? And like, well, the dragons are part of our own, so we need to protect those too.
Right.
And then the third one was this very, like, shockingly like adult.
Right.
Like,
right.
you need to be an adult and grow up and realize that it's not always about you.
Yeah.
It's about what the dragons need.
Yeah.
And it was like kind of emotional.
Right.
Like,
Right?
I got to the end where he's like, all right, buddy, you need to go.
Yeah.
And he like starts tearing up. I was like
Toothless. No,
So-
literally.
they were all good. I really enjoyed that, and I appreciated how it almost made Hiccup and Toothless feel like this brotherly bond because they're growing with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you get to that third movie, that's the conclusion of like, okay, well, they both like had to go their separate ways and like they got married, had their own kids,
Right.
and then they came back together and like reunited after all this time. And it was like a very nice way to end
Right.
the movie. So I have more I'll say, but I'll stop there
Yeah.
for now.
I mean, so funnily enough, I also watched this on DVD. The last time we watched all these movies, we had all three on DVD. And there's such a lost art of like the DVD extras that you don't get on streaming, and we're slowly trying to add more, but it's so different. So like we like finish the movie and then watch like all the bonus features.
Yep.
And it would be like how to draw Toothless, or like, you know, the development of the cast, or like I think John Powell did an interview about the soundtrack, and there's all this stuff that was like they cared so much about these movies, and I think that's awesome. And Chris Sanders is a really good director. He only directed the first one. So Chris Sanders and Dean DuBois, I don't know how to say his name. Dubois? I don't know. They directed the first one, and then just Dean finished the other two. Chris Sanders is also known for directing, more recently, The Wild Robot was his more recent DreamWorks project. He also directed The Croods. Also, weirdly enough, Lilo and Stitch in 2002.
That's
so
true.
if you look at all of his film, I'm really fascinated by his filmography, because you realize he is very keen on the internal family dynamic. And it's like, it's all because, like you said, like Hiccup and his dad don't see eye to eye. And it's about like them like meeting a middle ground and reconciling, and that follows them through all three movies. And then you think about The Croods, which is literally like about a family trying to survive, or The Wild Robot is all about like creating community and family, and like Lilo and Stitch. So like this is very much like his key theme and what he wants to hone in on. And I think like, and I said in my Wild Robot review on YouTube, I was like, I think that might be one of his best, but you cannot discount How to Train Your Dragon. Like the first one specifically, I think just like hits the nail on the head so hard of like, they don't make them like they used to. They really don't.
Because
Because
literally my letterbox review of
Right.
the first one is, man, they don't make
They
them
don't-
like they used to.
No, this movie is like about 15 years old at this point, which is insane, by the way. But this How to Train Your Dragon is 15 years old, and we're still going back to it. And we're still like, oh, it's about the dragons, and it's about the conservation, and it's about like, you know, being more than you were like supposed to be, and like kindness, and like not being afraid to reach out, and like breaking social norms. But it's also like the consequences of that. And so like Hiccup is like, he's not like the other Vikings, and he's like going out and like he wants to like make the dragons their own, like he wants them to be more like pets. And it's not as simple as that, because there's so much nuance to this community that has this idea hammered into them, like dragons are bad. And he like, over 3 movies, he has to try to change their minds and like be like, guys, it's okay, like we can do this. And I really think what I really, really appreciate about the third one is they handled a conversation that I don't think most stories like this would go in, and it's that we have too many dragons. It's like it got too much and it was too far, and it became selfish of us to keep them here.
Right.
And so I think that was such a deep and like really awesome conversation that I don't think they like other stories would have taken. So it's all about like how do we protect the dragons, but there was also so much of like Hiccup handling his own pride in that of like, no, I need the dragons. Like I want the like these are this is my dragon. Like I have to keep him. But there's also such a good conversation there about like he's like he and Astrid are coming together, but then like Toothless and this other dragon are coming together, and they're kind of like, well, something has to change. Like we have to evolve. We have to, like you said, you have to keep growing. And I think one of the strongest aspects, if you watch all these 3 movies in sequence, is Hiccup's character arc. And that's like he starts as a scrawny little punk kid that is honestly just kind of afraid of fighting and is kind of a nerd and is just like really fascinated by these dragons. And by the end, you watch him become this huge, like awesome leader that like commands everyone and all the dragons and does it so well, like his father before him. And you're just like, oh my gosh, what a crafted narrative that was obviously so intentional across 3 whole movies. Like there is not a bad How to Train Your Dragon movie yet. We'll talk about that later. So going off of this, do you think the first one is your favorite or the third one?
I don't know. That's hard. Because I like the third one. I gave all of them 4 stars on Letterboxd, and I don't know. I'm gonna stave off on that until the end because I feel like I need to talk about it and think about it more. One thing I do deeply appreciate in these movies, and it's something I feel like most movies don't do anymore, is how everything ties into this concept of family and how family played such a big role in all 3 of these movies. Because like you said, the first one is Hiccup trying to find that inroads with his dad, and like there is no relatability, and he can't stay all the way over here and his dad can't stay all the way over here, so they do have to find a middle ground,
right?
Of his dad being like, well, I accept you for who you are and you can play into your strengths and your weaknesses, and him being like, well, I understand why you keep doing all of these different things. Just trying to find that common middle ground there. And also like having to change the societal norm of like killing these dragons that have come in and it like attacked and terrorized our village for all these years. Like, and then later you find out in the second one, like it's this dragon, like dragons had kidnapped and presumably killed his mom. So like, I can understand why. So I did appreciate that. And then the second movie was kind of like bringing everyone together, because there's this one interaction with his mom where he realizes his mom is trying to get him to do the same thing that his dad wants him to do, but in a different sense of like, his dad was very big on, well, we can't keep getting dragons because you need to be the chief and protect people here. And then his mom was like, well, we can't bring any more people here because we need to protect the dragons. And then just the way he was able to find the middle ground of both of those.
It's beautiful.
And obviously become chief after his dad dies, which I'm really glad they didn't go the typical route of like not introducing his mom at all and letting her actually be dead and then killing off his dad. So now he has no parental figure in his life at all. Because then in the third movie, even his mom is there, not even
super prevalently,
but more to encourage Astrid to go help him.
Because, which is awesome.
His mom, like, he has such a healthy relationship with his mom where she's like, I can't baby you forever. Like, you're not marrying me. You're marrying Astrid. So she's the one who needs to, like, encourage you and help you and get you through that. And I love that their relationship, like Astrid and Hiccup, was not like a... Because, you know, it's so typical in movies nowadays to be like, oh, girl boss, like, blah, blah, blah. She's so cool. Which Astrid is very cool. And a very
she is
capable
a girl boss.
fighter and, like, a very good girl boss. But at the end of the day, she's like, okay, Hiccup's in charge. If you say jump, I'll say how high, and I will help you make this a reality. And if you're not thinking straight, I'll knock some sense into you. Like, and the way they balance each other out, I think is really good, and I appreciated that because it's like you just don't see good romance in animated movies
healthy
nowadays.
romance. Like
Yeah,
there's
it's
such
so
a healthy
hard to
couple. They're one of the best. I would put them in like one of the best animated couples of all time. Like
I'd agree.
without a doubt. I think it's hard to say my favorite because I actually really like the second one. I think it connects very deeply. But there's one specific moment in the second one that I remember when I saw it in theaters. It cemented it as one of my favorite movies. And it was he finds his mom, and that was a big deal. He finds his mom, and it was like really emotional. But then his dad shows up, and I don't think I've seen this movie without tearing up in this moment. And he just has this look of like bewilderment, and he's like cannot believe his eyes. And he like the first thing he says to her says, "You're just as beautiful as you were the day I lost you." And I'm just like, ah!
Yeah.
It's so good. Like even his parents are healthy. Like there's so much good, like not every, and I hate, this is the direction movies are going because they're so nihilistic and they think everything sucks. But there was a point where movies were like, marriage is awesome. Like families are awesome. Like relationships can be healthy. Like not everything has to be dysfunctional and sucky. Like they're such a core part of this movie is how much they love each other and how far they're going to go for each other.
Yeah.
And we don't realize that's what the people want, especially in a family movie, by the way.
Yeah, no, for real.
It's almost like when you make a family movie with good family values, people like it. Huh, fascinating. Who was going to tell me? Anyway, I just think that's one of the strongest elements of the story. And I think about that, but I also like I kind of feel in a weird way the same way about like John Wick. Like it's really hard to pick a favorite movie in a trilogy because you're like, or in a trilogy or when there's more sequels, because it's like, okay, do I love the first one or do I love that it kind of started the whole thing?
Right.
And so it's like the second one might be my favorite, but also like, what is the second one without the first one? So you're like,
right.
It's really, really hard to decipher that. So I don't know. I think I'm gonna say the second one is my favorite because I think it had the most individual moments that get me. Because like even their final fight with like the wildebeests and like it's just like the pure brute strength, which I know you said you weren't as into, but like when I think of like Vikings and dragons and this is the kind of fight that I'm expecting from this kind of world. So I don't know if that's a hot take or not. I think the second one is my favorite.
That's fair. I think something I appreciated. I think it was in the second one.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a theme that, not even a theme, but it's like a thing that persists throughout all three movies.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the scene in particular that I'm thinking of was in the second one, and it was Stoic was sitting downstairs in their house at the fire, and he was like crying and very visibly upset, thinking about losing his wife. And Hiccup comes downstairs and sees that, and then is like, "Oh, I'm just gonna go back upstairs. Like this is not a thing."
Right.
And then his dad like catches him, and he sits down, and Hiccup, being a kid, was like, "Are we gonna get a new mom?" And then you kind of see him pause for a second and be like, "No, she was the only one for me. Like that's what love is," and like talking about that. But it was this idea that these movies show that it's okay for men to be vulnerable. Like you can have it both ways, because Stoic is this very like manly brute strength, like, oh, I'm gonna punch a dragon in the face, but then also can sit in his cabin and cry and be upset that his wife is gone.
Right.
Or when he sees his wife again, like kind of lets down that tough guy facade of like, oh, this is this person who I've missed for years.
Yeah.
And she's here in front of me again, and like I can, like, this is a safe place. And then even Hiccup like crying when Toothless
Right,
left.
right.
Like, it's an emotional moment, and not this like, oh, you have to be this big stoic man who's not allowed to cry and you're not allowed to feel emotions. And I'm like, that's good. That's healthy. It shows you like in certain
depth.
like your emotions can change based on your circumstance. If it is like,
Right.
oh, you're saying goodbye to this treasured friend you've known who's been like super close to you all this time and they're moving away or whatever, yeah, you can be upset. You can be vulnerable. That's okay. But then you also have to be able to lock in when you need to and be like, all right, I'm just going to fight. So I don't know. I think
I think it's so dope.
the first one I'm going to say is my favorite just because, like you said, what are the other ones without the first one?
Right.
So that's
That's
where
the
I'm
one
gonna
I can
fall on
go.
that.
That's the one I can go back to the most.
Yeah.
Truly. Sorry, I am currently updating Fortnite on my Xbox.
Do you know what's crazy? I just had this
What?
thought.
What?
So I was born in 2002. In May 2002. Do you know what movie came out in May 2002? Lilo and
What?
Stitch.
Whoa.
And then my sister was born in June 2010. Do you know what movie came out in 2010? I don't know if it was June. How to Train Your Dragon 1.
Whoa.
Do you know what movies are getting live action remakes in May and June 2025 respectively? Lilo and Stitch and How to Train Your
gosh.
Dragon. Isn't that a little weird?
That is a little weird. Oh, that's kind of
Like,
I don't know how to feel.
I just
about
thought
that.
about that. I was like, I don't like that. That's weird.
That's what a weird thought.
So okay. Hold on.
Okay.
I also love these movies because I think dragons are awesome.
Yeah, dragons are just
And I love how
like-
much depth and world building and like how expansive that was, because it would have been so easy to just have like fire breathing dragons and that's
Right.
it. Because that's
Right.
all you think of and all you expect. But then there's like the Night Fury and all of
Yes.
these other different
The
types of
mysterious-
dragons.
yeah.
And they all do different things. Like the two-headed one, it spits out gas and then the other one lights it
Right.
on fire. Like, or the big alpha that, shoots ice everywhere. And
right.
all of this stuff, like, there's so much lore there. And they go
Right.
into, and I know they go into it a lot deeper in the shows because they have the time to like flesh that kind of stuff
right.
out. But then even like the fact that there's dragon trappers who would go around and trap them and catch them and kill them and sell them, like that's a
Right.
very humanistic
real.
thing to do. So I did appreciate that because it makes the world feel real, even though we really don't venture that far away from Burke ever.
I mean, other than the hidden world, no.
Yeah. So,
But even then, it's really not that far. Like,
right? Like it
Part
doesn't.
of
It
me is-
probably is that far, but it doesn't feel
Right.
that far.
part of me is like, did you guys just never look? Like, because
No.
I feel like we just kind of get there, which honestly, they probably didn't. Like, so
I mean,
I don't
hey,
know.
they thought they
Also,
were gonna
like-
fall off the world because that's
Right.
how that's how
Right.
the hidden world worked. Was like I was like, so
yeah,
flat Earth is real.
Flat Earth is real. Well, the other thing I want to mention, and the last one came out in 2019, and we kind of like figured animation out by 2019 in a way, at least more than 2010. But also, like, they're all gorgeous. Like, all these movies are beautifully animated, specifically The Hidden World. I think, like, once it comes out and you, like, see all the dragons in the world in the cave, you're like, holy crap. Like,
Yeah.
they really show the scale very well because it's, like, the people and the dragons are huge and the whole, like, I think this is a very beautifully animated movie. All of them are. And I think they just slowly get better animation-wise as we, like, figured animation out more because these movies came out over almost a decade. And so, like, that's kind of awesome. So, yeah, we kind of touched on it, but what do you think about this live-action thing?
I think it's unnecessary.
Yeah. How did you...
As
so
most are. This movie,
if you don't
that movie's
know-
only 15 years old.
No, right. If you don't know, DreamWorks did announce, and there's a full trailer for a live action How to Train Your Dragon, and this is DreamWorks' first like attempt at like a live action remake. I just think it's stupid. Like, it's a slippery slope. I don't want to see DreamWorks go down that path, especially for a movie that's not, like you said, like 15 years old. Like, the fact
Yeah.
that oh gosh.
You can kind of justify it in a way with how Disney started doing it. Because Disney started with their older movies that were from like the 20s and 30s and early 50s and 60s, like in the 70s, like movies that are multiple decades old.
Right.
That's understandable. Movies that are kind of old in the cultural zeitgeist, and like, Cinderella, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, like you can understand that. And even then, as they started getting into like Beauty and the Beast and Aladdin and the Lion King, it was like, okay, well, we're still enjoying like the original animated one.
Right.
So I don't know why you're getting like this close.
Yeah.
And then, which I'm sure we'll talk about this because I know we're planning on doing an episode on Snow White and like doing a tier list and stuff. There was what I felt was it's a graph.
Mm-hmm.
And the graph is how much effort do we need to put in to how much profit. And they found that perfect mark where like the lowest amount of effort but the highest amount of profit was right at the live action Lion King at $1 billion at the box office, and no effort put in terms of making it a new creative movie that adds things to the original story and like kind of makes it a justifiable remake, because that's how they got away with the other ones. Was like Beauty and the Beast added all this stuff with Belle's mom and how she died and all these original songs and all this stuff and made it so much better. And Cinderella kind of did the same thing. And then Maleficent was a completely different take on Sleeping Beauty.
Right.
So there was all of this
justified.
effort put in, and now they're kind of like phoning it in, and they're picking recent movies instead of continually doing old ones. Like we have Lilo and Stitch, Tangled, Princess and the Frog, like all of these movies that are not that old.
No.
That don't need a live action remake because the animated one is not that old and does
It
not
still holds up.
look bad.
Right.
So...
And I think it's my biggest frustration is that making a live action version of an animated movie implies that there's something wrong with the animated version.
Well, that is how Hollywood views animation.
Which is true. There are some parts of like if they did a live action Peter Pan, it would definitely have to be more culturally sensitive because that movie was kind of wild. But to throw like How to Train Your Dragon live action remake, you're like, literally why? Like why? And I think that what concerns me more is that the director, it wasn't Chris Sanders, I think it was Dean DeBlois, commented on it because he was kind of like, he kind of trained the director for the live action one, and they had a long conversation.
He was the director for the live action one.
Is he? Hold on.
I think Chris Sanders is an executive producer, but Dean DuBois is the director, because one of them said DreamWorks was doing it either way, with or without me. So I may as well work on it to make it as good as it can be. Which I respect that attitude so much. Of like, because they don't think they need a live action remake, and it's the studio executives that think it does. So they're like, all right, fine. I will not let you ruin this project without me.
Right. No, you're right. Dean DeBlois, whatever his name is, I'm sorry. Dean DeBlois is the director. I remember it's also being produced by Mark Platt, who is actually a very highly credited producer. He worked on La La Land, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. He worked on Drive, Legally Blonde. He worked on Wicked. He worked on Mary Poppins Returns. He worked on The Little Mermaid. He worked on Cruella.
Dude, they got Gerard Butler playing.
Yeah, he's coming
Stoic
back
in the live action. Oh, that's kind of sick.
So I don't know. I'm just like, the problem is, here's my theory, and we can come back and see how we feel about this after. I'm terrified because I think How to Train Your Dragon, the live action, is going to be bonkers successful. I think it's going to be like, maybe not to the level of Lion King, but like close. I think this is going to blow everyone away because it's DreamWorks' first attempt at this. And so they're going to be like, oh, sick. But who's to say that they don't also go down the path of like, oh, well, people will go see this. So like, what's the lowest amount of effort we can put in? Because DreamWorks is not like, we praise DreamWorks so much for their filmography. And I think they have some incredible movies that honestly most of the time blow Disney out of the water. If you think about like really unhinged classics like Megamind or Madagascar or my mind is blanking on other ones, but like movies like that. Also, this is the same company that made, I think, 2 or 3 Trolls movie and 2 Boss Baby movies. So
That's so true.
don't feel like DreamWorks is not out of the realm of possibility of doing a cash grab. Because they also, like, Puss in Boots' Last Wish is a phenomenal movie. It's awesome. But they also made that other Puss in Boots movie where Humpty Dumpty was the main character. Okay? So, like, don't pretend that they're perfect because we hate Disney. Like, they are prone to do this as well. And so I'm kind of scared. But
yeah.
with every Boss Baby, there's a wild robot. Or with every Trolls, there's a How to Train Your Dragon. And so it's like, what is this one going to be? Because it's either like a huge hit or like, what a miss. Why did you think you were doing this?
Right. I just watched the trailer for it again, like kind of in the background.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. It doesn't look bad.
It looks
Like,
great.
the trailer looks great as someone who's now seen the first movie.
Right.
I still think it's unnecessary.
Oh, for
like,
sure.
You can think, oh, this movie looks good, and it might be a well-made movie that looks and sounds great. Doesn't mean it was necessary. Like,
yeah,
especially if it's just going to end up being a 1-to-1 remake of the original. Like, why did you do that in the first place? That just seems like wasted money. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I think it goes back to this whole, like, there's a cultural zeitgeist amongst boomers, and I guess Gen X at this point, where animated movies are for kids. And not even animated movies, like family movies have to be for kids. There is no, like, I saw this really bad take from Matt Walsh a couple weeks ago where he was talking about how Sonic 3 is a terrible movie, and it made him want to, like, his video title was like, the Sonic 3, the movie that broke me as a father, and he admits, like, oh, it was, it wasn't dark enough, or no, he said it was too dark, in terms of tone,
Sonic
not
3?
lighting, and like Jim Carrey was the worst part of it or something. Hold on, let me find the tweet because
that is horrifically.
It's really
awful take.
stupid.
That is a painfully bad take. I will say I watched Sonic 2 last night, and it is a banger. That is a great family movie. And I also think, and I have a video coming out about this at some point, so I won't go super deep into it. You can watch that if you want. But the problem is family movies are always wildly profitable because you'll always have families that just want to go. I grew up in a movie theater family. Like, we would just go see whatever was out, like every other week or every week based on what was out. But back then, Disney was constantly putting out bangers in the theater. Like once or twice a month, you would get some crazy good Disney animated movie in the theater, and it would blow our minds every time. I'm talking Big Hero 6. I'm talking Zootopia. Like, those kind of movies. And now that we've realized that they can make a profit with lower effort, families that want to go to the movie theater don't have a choice but to support these movies. Because if I take my kids to the movie theater in, however many years, am I going to pick from the third How to Train Your Dragon remake, the second Lilo and Stitch remake, the fourth Lion King remake? And it's like, what do my children have? You're not making anything new. And I can't take them to have those memories and, make live action remakes from their memories for their kids. I don't care. Whatever. Like, but why do we need a live action version of a really great, like, close to perfect movie from 15 years ago? Like,
okay.
Money. That's why.
So I found the tweet that summarizes everything he says in this video. The title was Sonic the Hedgehog 3, the movie that broke me as a father. And the thumbnail
Gross.
says, kids deserve good movies.
Gross.
To summarize, he said, the Eggman dance made no narrative sense. The plot was too dark for a kid's movie. Keanu Reeves can't voice act. They should have made it with AI. And then the last one, he wasn't paying attention.
Shit.
Which completely undermines every other point he's ever made. And And it's I can't stand him because he has some
Yeah.
terrible media takes. Sometimes
Yeah.
he says something politically that I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Like, yeah,
I guess,
just stop
yeah.
talking about media. Because he's the same
Right.
guy who's like, all anime is satanic and it's evil, and if you watch anime, you're overweight and fat and obese and ugly.
Right.
And then he said something in this video of like, well, there were too many adults in the theater and they didn't have any kids with them. And I'm like, have you looked at the target demographic of a Sonic franchise?
Right.
Like, these are just nerds. Like,
Right. It doesn't
They're-
have to be for kids. That's the brilliance of it.
yeah.
Like, it's for
like
everyone.
the two of us who are very much adults and not kids
Yeah.
went and saw this movie and then did a
Right.
podcast about it. And we even talked about on that podcast how it's a good family movie because it has good values and it promotes all of these things. And
Mhm.
like, it is a little dark in the sense that like, I don't know, Maria dies and Sonic kind of
Yeah, but,
almost
like-
kills Shadow.
Yeah, but none
like,
of the...
have you seen any movie from
Ever?
like pre-2000s?
Right.
Like, The Lion King had Scar throwing Mufasa off a cliff to get trampled to death.
Right.
And then Simba had to discover his father's dead body and be chased
Right.
away to not be killed.
You're not going to act like we didn't watch, like, this angry mob of townspeople try to, like, shotgun the beast in the face
Yeah.
just to get thrown off this cliff to frickin' die?
Yeah.
Like,
Or like
No,
Tarzan,
Sonic,
where the
no.
villain falls off and like hangs himself in the
Right.
vines. Like, get out of here. Kids' movies have
Yeah.
always been dark. That was kind of the point.
we also are, like, How to Train Your Dragon is kind of dark. Like, their world gets destroyed. Like,
We need to stop infantilizing our children.
Well, the
and
whole point...
making them think that like life is this everything's sunshine and rainbows. Like, that is so unrealistic and it's terrible
that's kind
for
of
kids.
that's the freaking, oh my gosh, this is such a long-winded rant. This is the point of children's media. This is my take. Why do we make movies for children? Why? Because media is a way to understand the world from a different perspective. It transforms you to a different world to take big, confusing topics and push it down into a story that you can understand. That's literally what Jesus did. He told parables. They didn't get it, so he told them a story that helped them understand a separate perspective. This is what we're doing. We can't take these stupid freaking kids movies that are like, yeah, just be nice and everything will work out, because that's bull. Just being nice and everything works out doesn't happen. That's not real. We have to take these big, deep concepts for them that they don't freaking understand because the world is so confusing, and we're slowly making it more confusing for them. So if we're like, oh, if you watch The Wild Robot, this is a great example. That movie is literally about death. Everyone dies in that movie. Not really. You know, if you've seen it, you know. It's all about dying, and it has this incredible dark humor that adults appreciate, but also kids pick up on, of like, oh, interesting, this makes me think. Have conversations with your children about this stuff. Gosh.
Yep.
Anyway.
We're longer than rant. You want to wrap this up?
Yeah. All right. So, anyway, this was I really appreciated this conversation. I think there's a lot of really good stuff to talk about here. And honestly, at the end of the day, How to Train Your Dragon's a banger. All three of them are bangers, and I'm curious to see what they do with the new one. I'm gonna go see it just to know. And I'm comfortable giving my money to that because it's like I have to give them a shot. Like, because I'm not on the live action remake bad train. I'm on the unnecessary live action remake bad train. So maybe they will find a way to justify the necessity of it that just blows my mind. Who's to say? I'm not super hopeful now, but I'm going to go see it. But at the end of the day, we'll always have all three of these How to Train Your Dragon movies as a time capsule of just great cinema for anyone to enjoy. So, unless you have anything else to add, I think we're
Nope,
ready to
I'm
wrap it
good.
up. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Nerdiest Podcast. If you like what we do here, please give us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Pandora or Amazon, wherever you're listening. That would really appreciate us. And if you think this episode would be something that you or a friend or a cousin or a weird uncle would enjoy, please send it to them. The word of mouth is the best way for us to grow. Follow us on all the socials, Nerdiest Podcast, everywhere. But all those links are in the description for your convenience. So we will see you very soon in the next episode. Feel free to interact with us on all the social medias if you have any questions. Anyway, we have great plans for that. So Thank you so much for listening. Once again, we will see you in the next episode. Until then, bye.